Good day. I'm John Lyons. I'm a chartered chemist and also a chartered occupational hygienist. I was originally trained as an analytical chemist and then changed to occupational hygiene in the mid-70s, becoming the company occupational hygienist for a large multinational company. I'm currently post-retirement working with BOHS as a technical advisor to the qualifications group. On slide 1, you'll see that I'm going to talk about certificate of competence. One of the many questions we are faced with today is the person that we're talking to or employing competent to do the work that we want them to do. We need a way to identify this for individuals. BOHS recognized this some time ago and set up a pathway to a certificate of competence for people working in the asbestos area. Now, we'll now look at how this could be achieved. So in the asbestos area, the pathway to this qualification first involves the education stage, and that is the section at the top of the left-hand corner of your screen, where we start normally with asbestos surveying, which is P402. That's where most people start, and then they move into analysis of the asbestos that they've sampled. They then perhaps may move on to other things, which we'll talk about in a moment, but other people come in to this sequence as building managers, and they come in to take P405, which is a building management of asbestos in buildings. So they start from that point, the surveyors start from a different point, but they have to cover all 5 modules, including sampling of asbestos and fibre counting in the air, P403, and clearance post-remediation. So that is the education they require. Under normal circumstances, they are working as active people in the asbestos industry, perhaps under supervision, because obviously they don't have the experience. But whilst they're gaining this experience, and doing the modules, it takes about 3 years. So they gain 3 years experience, which is what we require, and they gain the education. We then ask them to do a written assignment, which we review and mark, and then they have to submit themselves to a professional discussion, which is effectively an oral examination with 3 examiners. Once they have completed this sequence of education, experience, and then the final check with an oral examination, they are awarded a certificate of competence in asbestos. So they have now a full suite of knowledge that they require to carry on professionally in the asbestos world. Similarly, in the ventilation world, we have a similar situation. Here, most people come in looking at local exhaust ventilation. They start with P601, that's our module, which is the thorough examination and testing of LEV systems. Once they've completed this and submitted a report on how they do that work, they often proceed to do the design of ventilation systems. One of the problems they then face often is where they've assessed a system is not working properly, and there are people being exposed to hazardous materials. So therefore, they need to know about the provision of personal protection so that the workforce are not continued to be hurt while they're continuing to work under those conditions. Finally, they then take an advanced proficiency module on installation and management of ventilation systems. This again, as with the asbestos, it usually takes 3 years while they're gaining practical experience in the field. They then need an additional 6 months after completing the last module to actually demonstrate to us that they can work in a professional capacity as a management and organizational manager. And then they submit a CV. Their reports that they've submitted during their studies are then reviewed. If those are all satisfactory, then they move on again to the professional discussion, which is effectively an oral examination with 3 examiners. It takes about an hour. So we're very thorough, but at the end of that sequence, we've provided education, we've checked their experience, and they have then demonstrated they are knowledgeable and good enough to be given a certificate of competence. The third subject area we offer a certificate of competence is Legionella. Here, there are 3 modules. The first one is the study of hot and cold water systems, which may be domestic systems or the systems that you see in care homes or more commercial premises, the washrooms in factories and so on. They are often regarded as hot and cold water systems, and they can be a breeding ground for Legionella if they're not properly looked after. So that is the first module that we ask people to do to gain their education. Then they have a choice of which they do next. They can either go into industrial systems, which is ventilation systems, cooling towers, humidifier systems, and even vehicle washing like train washers, bus washers, lorry washers, and even to the extent of washing agricultural machinery. That is also a Legionella risk with those systems because often they use recycled water. So once they have completed that study, they then need to look at the other area, which is leisure and recreational systems. This includes such systems as swimming pools, hot tubs, fountains, both indoors and outdoors, or even the humidifier sprays that are perhaps used in display or recreational areas where they spray the crowd with fine aerosol water. That again is part of where we need to look for Legionella. Once they've completed those 3 courses, again, often gaining experience while they're doing this, but it taking 3 years, they then have to do 6 months after their last module, a complete professional experience. This is often then completed, and they then submit a CV and a report. Submit a CV and submit their reports. Again, those that they've submitted earlier for rechecking. If those are all satisfactory, then they go on for a professional interview, an oral examination. And again, at the end of that, with education, experience, and proof of competence, we award a certificate of competence. One of the problems that people holding certificates of competence is also that they must maintain their competence. So they have to keep up to date. Most people do this by continued professional development using such bodies as BOHS as a membership body. They are able to then record their continuous development and so therefore be able to maintain their competence and show that they are retaining their competent level. So we now there are other competencies that we also do, but those are much higher level, and these are things that people can progress from the individual subject certificate of competence. They can then progress onwards to certificate of competence in occupational hygiene, being a next level above this. So certificates of competence give you confidence in the people are competent to do the job. Thank you for your time.